Vehicles. The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to split my time as I rise today in support of the Conservative motion in opposition to the government's authoritarian, misguided, and altogether nonsensical ban on gas-powered vehicles. A ban on gas-powered vehicles sounds like some kind of conspiracy theory or something straight out of a science fiction novel, but it's real stuff, and it's happening right now, and the Minister of Environment told us as much last week. And she didn't tell us that it was some aspiration or some kind of 100-year plan. She told us that it was a hard ban, a concrete requirement that this government's going to bring in less than 10 years from now. So we know that members across the way like to think while wearing their radical thinking caps or their CN Tower climbing jumpsuits. Let's take them off for 1 second and really consider what a policy like this does for Canadians and the Canadian economy. It would mean that we would need to have nearly 700,000 charging ports from coast to coast in less than a decade. We have 60,000 right now. And get this, in 2024, last year, the government managed to install fewer chargers than it did the year before. And apparently the only thing moving slower than those electric vehicle charging construction of those stations is the government email mandating them. This ban would also mean that $600 billion would have to be prepared in infrastructure, would have to be spent. That's over $11,000 for every single car on the road at the moment. And it would mean even lower car sales, lost jobs, higher auto prices, and the misery for consumers and workers alike. And that's not according to me, that's according to the CEOs of some of the largest automakers in Canada. Canadian economists and the nonpartisan number crunchers say that this ban would cost us 38,000 jobs if the sector remains operational at all. The boots on the ground, the people who make the cars, purchase the parts, navigate the international trading relationship, say a move like this would take us out of alignment with key trading partners like the U.S. In an integrated North American market, threatening our position in the supply chain and the global economy. And let's not forget, the Liberals want to do all of this at a time where our auto sector is already menaced by tariffs south of the border, while we're already losing jobs left, right, and centre. The Globe and Mail reported more today. And while Canadians are still reeling from the worst inflation in 4 decades. Add an industrial carbon tax to this, and now you've got a recipe for uncompetitiveness, all while preaching the bravado of an elbows up. And Canadians can't even think about putting food on the table, finding a place to live, or frankly, I think the last thing on their mind is putting a new Tesla in the driveway. But the government's going to come in with another job-killing mandate, another burden on consumers in the economy, all because they know better than you do. I don't think that the Environment Minister has taken any time to think about these mandates in a real way, and I know that her accomplice, the Heritage Minister, who actually brought these mandates into place, hasn't either. This is what you get when you govern by vibes instead of governing by logic and reason. Canadians have certainly got used to this from these Liberals, but even by established standards, this ban deserves some kind of award in creative governance. A deeper dive into the program, Mr. Speaker, and the inconsistencies and lack of oversight, you end up with just plain lunacy. And I think the Canadians watching this at home have no idea that this is happening. And this is a plot twist that nobody saw coming except for every single automaker in the industry. The federal electric vehicle rebate program just ran out of money. 2 months early, poof, gone, vanished, just like that. But the sales mandates, they are still in place. Look, it's like telling Canadians that they have to eat nothing but steak for dinner every night and simultaneously taking away their grocery budget and calling it a climate plan. Automakers, dealers, and consumers were, shockingly not thrilled to find out that the $5,000 rebate evaporated all overnight, and some poor souls even went to the dealership expecting that rebate and didn't get it when they were in line to buy their electric cars. And look, I'm not a fan of the rebate to begin with, but nothing says stable investment climate like a last-minute pullback of a rebate that Canadians thought they were getting. And let's not forget the nearly $31 billion in subsidies that were handed out to foreign automakers and battery manufacturers, all whom are already going bust in a really big way, and billions for multinational corporations and their executives, and heaven forbid a consumer gets $5,000 to buy one of these things. So the new economic model that the Liberals always think about is subsidize the company that builds the product and then subsidize the consumer that buys it and hope that nobody notices that the math actually doesn't add up. You can't prop up both ends of the seesaw forever. Eventually, someone is going to want a product and that the government can't give you a check for, and markets won't work on that basis when Ottawa plays both the buyer and the seller in all of this. In Ottawa's mind, the electric vehicle revolution is not happening because they said so. It's incentives, like that's not their problem. Infrastructure, also somebody else's problem. Communication, that seems optional for them. But the mandates, those are very, very real, and they are sticking to them. The result is that automakers will face penalties for not selling enough electric vehicles, consumers will face higher prices, and dealers will face unsellable inventory. They've told us as much. They've told this government as much. And Ottawa will face absolutely no accountability for any of it. And what's more, Mr. Speaker, is that the liberty and freedom of choice that is guaranteed to every single Canadian vanishes with each passing decision. It's replaced by a government that thinks they know best about what you should eat or what you should drink or how you should drink it or what should you use to drink it. And yes, what kind of car you should drive. So for those watching this at home, the government doesn't want you to drive your gas-powered car anymore. They've decided that there is a mandate that everybody drives an electric car, and it's insanity. The bureaucrats and the middle managers and the members of Parliament and the ministers of this government, they think they know better than Canadian consumers, and they want to make those decisions from Ottawa. And they think they should be in control of every aspect of your life. And we've seen this show happening before. We know how it ends. You take your pick. It's a mandate, or it's a carbon tax, or it's some weird DEI quota, it's plastic straws, you name it. This government believes that they can control your life better than you can. They can make the decisions better than Canadians can, better than they can for themselves. And we get significantly worse outcomes. In fact, they backtrack on some of those outcomes. We get those outcomes at a greater cost, and it takes sometimes 7 times longer than it should, and it leaves everybody worse off. And instead, the government does a few important things really, really well. We get a government that does a zillion things badly, and we still can't get anybody's passport to come in the mail on time because the passport printer is broken and the mail people are on strike. This is a government that wants to do everything for you, to creep into your life and to take control. The government wants to build an economy based on edicts and mandates and ideology and a healthy sprinkling of fairy dust, and none of this is actually going to happen. But, Mr. Speaker, edicts and mandates and ideology, all of those things don't put food on the table. All of those things don't actually help people. All of those things don't provide the choice that you should have as a Canadian. This might come as news to the government, but this is what it does. Individual people living their lives as they see fit, participating in a free market, making decisions based on rational analysis and scarce resources is something that the government knows nothing about. For instance, in my community, I will say this, that there are lots of people that drive electric vehicles because it makes sense. Short distances, we don't have erratic weather, we don't have really, really cold temperatures, and with the right incentives, it makes sense based on what people choose. But try telling somebody who lives in rural Alberta, who has to drive an hour or more just to run errands, where it gets to minus 40 degrees, that they are going to be mandated to drive an electric vehicle by the government. It makes no sense. It's not rational, and that's exactly why we oppose this mandate. Look, on all of those on the opposite side of this aisle might be content to pursue the ideological war on the gas-powered car. But Conservatives on this side of the House will not stand for it. We will speak for every single person who wants to make their own decision, who wants to make a rational economic decision. We'll stand up for the auto workers and those who build our sector. We'll stand up for decisions that make common sense by the auto sector, by the workers in the auto sector, and by every single Canadian that wants to make a decision. Thank you.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must say there's a little bit of irony here. For those that are not aware, the member that just spoke actually used to work for Doug Ford when he was, he still is the Premier of the province of Ontario. And, you know, whenever we saw these giant press conferences where you would have Justin Trudeau talking about the importance of expansion, employment opportunities in the whole electric field in terms of vehicle productions and the potential for expansions. Who was beside him? Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario. And I'm wondering if Doug Ford had any influence on the member opposite, or was Doug Ford wrong in terms of his investments? Because there was provincial investments also tied into those. Was Doug Ford wrong too?
The member for Thornhill.
Thankfully, Doug Ford has had no influence on this member in terms of the decision. The insane decision of mandating electric vehicles for people to drive. $31 billion of government investment is going to vanish in this country. Jobs will vanish in this country. Say that to the 38,000 auto workers that will be out of a job. Say that to the 56,000 auto workers whose job is at risk today. If he wants to make a joke about Doug Ford, that's his prerogative. But this is serious about the people who work in this country and people who get to choose what they drive, how they live their lives, what straw to use, and every decision about their lives. We're not going to take a lesson from this government about how to live our lives.
Questions et commentaires. Questions and comments. Le député pour Pierre Boucher, les Patriotes Verts.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, les Patriotes Verts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if the member is aware, but there is an excellent hub in Quebec about electric transportation. There's an excellent industry. There are a lot of people who are really excited to work for the clean energies of the future. Is my colleague attacking an industry that is strong in Quebec that generates thousands of jobs? Is she trying to go to war against EVs?
Mr. Speaker, nobody is denying that there are times where the choice to drive an electric car, or the people who drive an electric car making that choice, there's anything wrong with that. What is wrong with that is that you're mandating everybody to drive an mandating everybody to drive an electric car rather than a gas-powered car, rather than their choice. The decision has to make economic sense. It has to make sense for the driver, and it has to make sense for the Canadian economy. That's what we're saying here today.
And comments, questions et commentaires. The member for Simcoe Grey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague for that wonderful speech. Honda Canada was in my riding till this latest election and redistribution, dealt with them all the time, and thanks for pointing out the importance of those jobs. I remember Stephen Harper back, I was a mayor before, prior to my time here, introduced the gas tax, and that, for a lot of municipalities, was dedicated funding for roads and bridges, and I know how important it was, especially for the rural areas at that time. So my question to the members, do they think that this is ridiculous and all the companies know it, all the manufacturers know it? Does she believe that this is going to go the same route as the carbon tax, and that the government, the Liberal government, will try and sell it, and at the end, the reality is it just makes absolutely no sense?
For Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, it makes absolutely no sense from the beginning. Whether the government wants to tie itself to the EV mandate for the next 9 years until they do some weird mental gymnastics and back out of the very central piece of their policy. The very fact that Canadians can't choose, and the very fact that it doesn't make economic sense, particularly in that member's riding, for anybody to drive an EV. It takes a good couple of hours to get around his riding. I suspect the charging infrastructure is not there. It won't be there. These guys are married to a plan that doesn't work. And I suspect that while they get bonked over the head with it for the next couple of years, they will have a reversal, just like they did on the carbon tax when Conservatives pushed them to drop it.
Question and comments. We have time for a short.
What?
Gang, what do you think about electric vehicles? Is Canada ready for this step? I don't think so. Electric vehicles are cool. They'll get there, but this shouldn't be an agenda forced by the government. Aaron, Canadian Looney, like, share, subscribe. Catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching this one.